Good evening, you're watching NDTV Profit. I'm Sanjana. A key development in global trade has put India in focus once again. Ahead of the significant meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, US President Donald Trump announced reciprocal tariffs targeting countries that impose higher duties on American goods. Now, with India's import tariffs on the US products significantly higher than what the US charges on Indian goods, could India be among the most impacted? Trade imbalances and tariff structures were key discussion points in this very crucial meeting between Modi and Trump, and this move is seen as a push for greater market access and revised trade terms. Now, while negotiations continue, could this mean potential price increases and broader trade tensions in the future? Let's find out as we take a closer look at what this means for India and the global economy. And to shed some more light onto my panel this evening, I have Ashima Goyal, economist, former member IMC, Ajay Bagga, market veteran, Jayant Krishna, Senior Fellow, Center for Strategic and International Studies, and Harsh Pant, VP Studies and Foreign Policy Observer Research Foundation. Ashima, let me come to you first. How does the implementation of reciprocal tariffs affect the overall trade balance between the US and its major trading partners, particularly India, considering factors such as elasticity of demand and supply?
Yes, let's not say implementation as yet, because it's only been announced and it's most likely a negotiating ploy because Mr. Modi was there, and it was sort of to begin with, this is our card, and therefore. But overall, I think for India, we have seen that India tends to run a current account surplus with the developed countries, while it has entered many FTAs and so on with East Asian nations, but it tends to have a deficit with these countries. Therefore, it is in India's own interest to negotiate a broader trade deal with the US. And it is in India's own interest, again, to cut tariffs on many goods, which will actually reduce prices in India, at least initially, and benefit various consumers, as well as encourage industries to locate in India. So therefore, I think we should go into this with the view that there can be many advantages for us.
Absolutely. And we also spoke with a lot of experts this morning, and they are more or less saying the same thing that you are actually, Ashima. But I'm going to quickly get in some insight from Ajay Bagga. Ajay, how might these tariffs actually influence market volatility and investor sentiment? And what steps can investors actually take to manage risk and protect their capital in an uncertain trading environment?
Yeah, very difficult to do much. The cost of hedging is very high because when volatility goes up, the cost of options also go up, the option premia go up. So the cost of protecting portfolios has also gone up. But the investors have to see through what is happening. Trump's policy is shock first, negotiate then, and then strike a deal which might be totally 180 degrees away from the original plan. So throughout his election campaign, he talked about 60% tariffs on China. What we saw was a whimper of 10% tariffs on China. 25% on Canada, Mexico got reversed in a day. 25% on Colombia was weaponization to make Colombia accept deported immigrants, and that got wiped out in a day. So he lacks a lot of credibility. The Koreans negotiated well in Trump 1, and the Indians are also very strong negotiators. So I would not read much into the Prime Minister's visit. It was an excellent visit, given that we had very little objectives, rather than just starting the gambits to get Trump onto the chessboard. These tariffs are not coming. You're not getting 100% tariffs on Indian pharma. All we get from US, for example, is about $600 million of pharma. We are tariffing that at 10%. Tomorrow we can drop that to zero. It won't make a dent. We are sending about $7 to $8 billion of generic pharma. The US is trying to cut down its healthcare costs, which are like $850 billion, and still not getting full healthcare. 85 million Americans are not having any healthcare available. So, and if you put tariffs on India, you have to do that on the Chinese generics. You have to do on EU, you have to do on Mexico. So I would not read much into this, and the market will look through this as well. The market fall is more due to domestic corporate earnings, due to the domestic economic cycle where it is at, and third, FI is withdrawing from emerging markets, not only India. We have got our fair share of it, but we must remember about 15-17 billion has gone out of emerging markets in this year in the first 6 weeks. And out of that, India has seen 10 billion. So we've got a higher share, but it's an emerging market issue, not India-specific issue.
Very, very interesting insight, and asking Jayant Krishna if he actually agrees with it, and what are the likely responses from other major economies such as China, the EU, like we spoke about, to this policy, and how might these responses shape the future of the global trading system?
See, Sanjana, let's understand, first of all, in today's day and age, nations do not necessarily get what they deserve. They get what they negotiate. I think to that extent, I think the first engagement within 1 week of President Trump taking over, a telephonic conversation between Prime Minister Modi and Trump, and now with the bilateral visit, Modi's visit to the US, I think those are all steps in the right direction. Not that the final tariff boundaries get decided in such bilaterals, but the posturing, the discussions lead you to something where the finer details are worked out. So let's US actually is India's largest trading partner. Let's understand, and India is USA's seventh largest trading partner. If you look at the total trade between the two countries, it is of the order of $200 billion, and this is one of the very few, perhaps the only major country in the world where India has a trade surplus in its favor, which means India exports more to the US than what it imports from the US, and that is what President Trump would not like to see. He's not too happy with that. They would like to be on an equal footing, so I think that's what the entire issue is all about. But one thing is very clear, like, for China, they have imposed a 10% incremental, duty over and above the existing duty. I think nothing like that has been done for India as yet. And when I'm saying about negotiations, give and take, it's not just between trade issues. Within the trade issues themselves, it is between trade and immigration. It is between critical technologies and trade issues. And so the platform is so huge. I think what is more important is both nations have realized this strategically, the US-India relationship is very, very important. And not only from an economy point of view, but also from the way India is located in the world map. We play an active role in the Indo-Pacific region, and the Quad developments happening in terms of Australia, Japan, US, and India. I think there's a lot that has to happen. To my mind, even if we have to give in a bit on the trade issues. But there are few other issues which are very, very important. For example, India's foray into semiconductor. I think we missed the hardware revolution long time back because we were not serious about semiconductors, And now there is a mission, and some developments have happened. The first investment from the US has happened. Right. And so similarly, the GE and HAL, jet engine manufacturing. I believe there's some initial hiccups in technology transfer and so on and so forth. So I think these discussions would have taken on these lines. And immigration, largely, I'd like to put in two buckets. One is the H-1B, which is for highly skilled people who go to the official route, and other is the illegal immigration. Not much has come out as to what exactly got transacted on trade issues and what were the agreements. That is still not in public space as of now, except that President Trump has talked about reciprocal duties and so on and so forth. Let's see which way it moves. But India has taken the first mover's advantage, and I'm hopeful it may not be as detrimental to India as it is being projected out to be.
Absolutely, a wait and watch approach. But Harshpant, I'd like you to weigh in on The impact on possible domestic political landscape in the US. Let's consider voter sentiment. Let's consider lobbying efforts by affected industries. The balance of power between the different branches of government. Any impact that you foresee, or is it not going to be as severe as imagined?
No, I think what Mr. Trump has been doing now in the initial first few weeks of his administration is basically responding to the demands of his base. So the base that has propelled him to power wants to see him do certain things, wants to see him tick certain boxes, whether it is on immigration, whether it is on trade and tariffs, whether it is on domestic manufacturing. And I think he's one by one responding to that mandate that he has received. And that was, in some ways articulated both by him and by our Prime Minister, who said that if Mr. Trump's mandate is to deliver on his commitments, on his national interest, then it is our responsibility also to look at Indian national interest. So I think there is a recognition on both sides that both sides are responding to their respective mandates, and therefore the negotiated settlement between the two countries will have to come at a point where the domestic constituencies are satisfied. So if Mr. Trump is responding to his domestic constituencies at this point, India is also responding. India will also inevitably have to respond to its own internal compulsions, and therefore there are certain red lines, for example, that India will not be able to cross. And I think those red lines would have been communicated even during this visit. Now, I think what perhaps is interesting and important is that a lot of this tick boxing that Mr. Trump is doing at this point will also allows him a lot of leverage in negotiating with other countries, as was mentioned by other panelists. So if you look at this announcement of reciprocal tariffs, the assessment of reciprocal tariffs by the USTR and other agencies, the Commerce Secretary, etc., that he has asked them to do, it means that as this process would unfold domestically in the US, others will have to respond. And which means that he will always have a leverage that, look, this is coming, therefore you need to give me a better deal. Ultimately, we are going to see deals being made left, right, and center by all countries, including India. Mm-hmm. And that means that we have to be nimble and flexible on our side, as well as draw those clear red lines, which I think was the most important aspect of this visit, which basically laid the framework of the relationship for the next 4 years in terms of the predictability and stability that India wants in Indo-US relationship, as much predictability and stability as perhaps you can get in the day and age of Mr. Trump. So I think in that sense, the visit has laid down the parameters. Now it is up to the bureaucracies and the negotiators to come out with the nitty-gritty and the details of this arrangement. And as was being mentioned, much of this will be giving in one sector, taking in another. How do you negotiate strategic dimension with the trade dimension? How do you negotiate immigration and other issues? Because you look at these issues in the form of a bouquet of issues that are on the table. And therefore, that agenda is very expansive when it comes to India-US negotiations. And we will see India already moving with the first mover advantage on certain issues, saying that, look, we are going to buy defense technology, we are going to buy energy, we are going to do this we are going to be sensitive to your immigration concerns, and America being sensitive also in some respects, saying that, look, we are going to work on terrorism, we are going to leave Bangladesh, for example, to you. So I think by and large, that a template is being set for the next 4 years, which I think was the biggest deliverable of this visit.
Right. I like that concept, the template being set. But Ashima, do you think that you can... I know, we are not really saying that it's as severe as imagined and we're adopting a wait and watch approach, but any potential impact on the global supply chains, what strategies can businesses adopt to mitigate disruptions and to maintain competitiveness?
I think that India, being a large country, we should play on our diversity, as well as diversity in trade. And we have been doing that. We're developing new trade partners all the time. So that we are not dependent only on one country. And Mr. Trump also, as a negotiator, appreciates strength. I think the American response also, to touch on points that were covered in the earlier discussion, because markets reacted very negatively to the announcement of tariffs on Canada. And Trump, then that must have been one of the factors leading to the postponement. So I think all of these things are negotiating ploys. And if there is a large continued feedback from the market, from domestic policy, domestic participants who see higher inflation. Already we're seeing US inflation going up. So we might not see as extreme kind of protectionist movement as earlier, as he has been saying. So, and also we have seen in the post-pandemic period for India that we have reached a level of development and buffers as well as degrees of freedom for policy to counter foreign shocks. So I think to Mr. Banga's point about markets overreacting, they tend to be very, very US focused, but we have many other arrows in our quiver, many other countries we deal with. And I think this pressure from the US is leading to India becoming closer to China in some ways. We're seeing some thawing in our relationship there. So, and we saw that we were able to use domestic policy to counter the pressures from the Ukraine war and attain very, very high rates of growth. So again, to come back to the points made recently, that this negotiation between Mr. Modi and Trump in this visit, it's actually underlying is the strategic alignment between the US and India. And this alignment has taken place since Trump won and even before that, since Clinton times. So there are many, many areas in which our interests are aligned. And I don't think just tariffs or trade issues are going to be allowed to upset that. So again, as I said, even in trade itself, there is scope to have a broader trade deal, which looks at things like why some of our highest tariffs against the US are in textiles, in food products, where you need to protect labor-intensive sectors of the economy. And I think when you negotiate a broader trade deal, these issues will be understood. And you can compensate by, importing more oil, energy, technology. The recent change in our law to allow the nuclear deals to progress with U.S. companies. Then the very many U.S. companies who want to diversify from China and come into India, they will also form a lobby that will want Indian interests to be protected. So I think we are developing many, many levers to play with in this negotiation.
Right.
And overall, I think we begin from a good place and we have good prospects going forward.
So talking about negotiation, I'm going to come to you, Jayant. Before we actually kicked off this discussion, we were discussing this. In what ways could, these tariffs or the mere discussion of it be used as a tool for political leverage in international negotiations? And what are the potential risks and rewards associated with this kind of approach?
See, as far as India is concerned, there is no free trade agreement in discussion with the US at all. With the UK, of course, it is an advanced stage. Australia, we have just concluded one. But with the US, there is nothing like that on the cards. There's nothing being discussed. Even with the European Union, there's some discussion had happened almost 2 years ago. Nothing seems to have taken off. So I think, these are all, dots connected internationally. And any tariff refilling that happens here and there does have may not be direct, but in due course of time it does impact the tariff structures elsewhere also. I think let's also understand that some of the other areas, one important meeting, we still don't know what exactly transpired there, but Prime Minister's meeting with Elon Musk, I think in two areas. One is EV manufacturing itself, India has been, eyeing, and US happens to be the largest FDI investor in the country. And Prime Minister himself is very, very keen that, Tesla starts manufacturing here, but Elon Musk has been playing hide and seek. I remember once, even some policy changes that he wanted were effected, but at the last moment he cancelled his visit. I think it was last year. So I think this is very area, and Elon Musk's, his foray into satellite. I think that's another very, very important area for India to look into. So I think I surely. One doesn't know which way the tariff structure would eventually gravitate to, and what will be the equilibrium, which where both the countries would be reasonably happy. one doesn't know. But I think these other areas are extremely important. As I said, semiconductor, critical technologies, the H1B visa issues, jet engine, I think all these things are to be taken into consideration. And let's also understand, see,
Right.
last year, India's economic survey had a very important thing. What it said, the fact that post-COVID, the opportunities that came to India, that as MNCs were trying all over the world to try to relocate part of their manufacturing supply chains in destinations other than China.
Right.
I think India has been at the front runner on that.
Right.
But one reason why we have not been able to tap those opportunities to an extent we should have, one reason has been that India's manufacturing supply chains today are not integrated with that of China.
Right.
So I think if there is some thaw in the relationship between India and China, that would also help, And this kind of a balancing act in terms of India's relationship with the US versus our relationship with the China, I think the two have to be seen together in totality. And of course, with the US, our relationship is far better. And, it has last 30 years, the relationship has been very good, irrespective of whosoever has been the US president or whosoever has been the Indian prime minister. But I think China one has to tread very carefully. But surely I am all for a greater economic integration between India and China as well. There's a lot we can learn from China.
Thank you so much, and we're running out of time, so I'm going to get a quick thought from Ajay, and because Jayant rightly spoke about the potential opportunities and the challenges. But if I were to ask you, Ajay, the challenges and the opportunities for businesses in adapting to this tariff environment or the potential tariff environment, and how can companies now position themselves to capitalize on these new market dynamics and competitive advantages?
India has to follow what Europe is doing. Europe has signed agreements with South America. They've signed with Southeast Asia. We have to diversify. That's one. Second big thing is Trump's word means nothing because he removed NAFTA and he brought in a fresh agreement with Canada and Mexico, which again he upended now. So even if we get an agreement, it's not worth the paper it's written on. It's only as good as how much value do you provide to Trump at that time. So India will negotiate hard. We have a huge market backing us. We have a young population. Immigration, you're not getting any much more relief than what we already have. That's a known position. You keep throwing your gambits. We have 39% tariffs on agriculture. We can't remove those. Our farmers are already unproductive. If you remove those and let all the goods come in, already California pistachios and almonds have more or less killed off the Indian industry. So those are well thought out things from the Indian side, while you're dealing with a deal maker who flies off the handle as a negotiation tactic. So India knows it well. We'll have to just dig in. We are very big purchasers of defense. We are buying about $85 billion we are spending on defense. Every year we have to buy from Israel, France, UK and US, apart from keeping our all-weather friend Russia happy. So India is not going to change overnight, but it was a good opening move today, Sanjana.
Thank you so much, Ajay, and thank you so much to all of my guests for this insight that you have shared and shedding light on this issue that was causing a fair amount of stress and panic. But now, after speaking with you, the severity of it, I think all of that has been allayed. So thanks so much for giving us all of that great insight, and thank you for your time today. Because as the situation unfolds, it remains essential for Indian policymakers to engage proactively with their US counterparts, as my guest said this evening. And these need to be good relations that address concerns, seek mutually beneficial solutions. So the future of India-US trade relations will depend not only on how both of these nations respond to these tariffs or whenever they're implemented, but also on their willingness to collaborate in an increasingly interconnected global economy. So in conclusion, while reciprocal tariffs present certain risks for India's economy, they also offer opportunities. for strategic adjustments and negotiations that could ultimately strengthen trade ties between the two nations. By staying informed and adaptable, India can navigate this complex landscape effectively and continue its path towards sustainable economic growth. Thank you so much for watching.